This is a knife board. And you'd find them hanging up in the kitchens of houses. You don't see them anymore, apart from in museums and folk museums. They're now pretty much obsolete. But I made this one because I was really intrigued by them and I wanted to see how they worked, and they actually work remarkably well. In the past, all our cutlery, all our knives were carbon steel. And carbon steel rusts very quickly and then can tarnish very quickly as well, especially if you're using it with acidic foods and cheeses and meats and such like. So washing the knife wouldn't always get rid of all the surface patina, rust on the knife. And this is where the knife board, sorry, came in. And it's a very quick, very effective and very cheap way of not only keeping your knife sharp, but actually in good condition. They work very simply. As I said, they hang up on the wall. You take them down and you put them on the table horizontally like this. And you knock out some of the grit that you've got inside and just spread a little bit up and down the board like this. You don't have to do this every time, especially if you want a finer cut or you're just honing the knife, because the grit will break down over time. So you rest the end on a table or a surface and you just push the knife up and down as you would using a hone. Not only can we work on the bevels, but we can work on the sides of the knife to condition it, to bring it back into perfect shiny condition again. Over time these boards would wear, and quite often you can see examples of where they've been dished out at the back. This is quite thin, this board. Usually they would have been made out of thicker wood. And as long as you plane it smooth, they're absolutely fine. Apparently oak was used quite commonly as well as ash. So we used the ring porous woods, maybe because the grit actually goes into the pores of the wood better and gets stuck there. The grit I'm using is actually the dried out grit from the grindstone I dressed in my last video. Right, okay, that should be nearly done. And just to prove how sharp this knife actually is, let's get a piece of paper and see how well it cuts. That's reasonable, could be a bit sharper. Right, for the ultimate test, I always like to cut the end grain of a softwood. This is a bit of white pine from the builders merchants. Anyway, let's see how this works. Okay, I can get a shaving off end grain of pine. Right, I am slicing the knife through like this, so that's not the ultimate test. The ultimate test, as far as I'm concerned, is just to pull the knife straight through without any slicing action. Yeah, this works. I'm getting a shaving. I'm getting a pretty good mirror. Yes, that's a mirror finish there. This edge is okay. It's not the best. Obviously, I go on to very fine stones and I strop with very fine compounds, so I do get a really mirror polished edge. But for all intents and purposes, I can carve, and I can carve reasonably very well with this knife now, just using a piece of wood and some grit that came from my grindstone. We can use other grits, and people used a whole variety of things, whatever they could get hold of. One of the favourites was red tile, or red brick, basically ground up brick or tile. And again, that was just put in the little box down the bottom, tapped out when needed, and spread across. Obviously, the finer you can grind it, the better. People also used sharp sands, and again, it's best if you actually grind them down. So a lot of sands, well, a lot of river and beach sands is actually rounded, so you need to create the sharp edge by fracturing the grains. All sorts of other things were used, clay, or some clays will bring back your blade into tip-top condition very, very quickly. So give it a go. I'd love to hear any feedback you've got on this, any information about knife boards, and have a go. It was great fun.